Jiho Kim stood by the large window overlooking the vast emptiness of space. Small beads of sweat formed on his forehead despite the cool air in the station. Today marked his first day as Earth's newest diplomatic representative to the Galactic Council, and his stomach felt like it was doing flips. "They're ready for you now, Representative Kim," said a voice behind him. Jiho turned to see Han, a fellow human of Korean descent who had been living among the alien races for over 20 years. Han's kind smile did little to calm Jiho's nerves. "Thank you," Jiho said, straightening his formal blue uniform. "How many species will be there?" "Only 17 today," Han replied. "The minor representatives. You'll meet the full council next week." Jiho nodded and followed Han through the wide, curved hallway of the massive space station. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that reminded him of early morning on Earth. "Remember," Han said softly, "try not to stare at the Bellori. They find it offensive. And don't show your teeth when greeting the mech. For them, it's a sign of aggression." Jiho tried to remember all the rules he had learned during his 3 months of training, but there were simply too many. Earth had only joined the Galactic community 15 years ago, making humans the newest and least experienced species in the Council. The doors to the meeting hall slid open with a gentle hiss. Jiho took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room was much larger than he had expected. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and colors stood in small groups, talking among themselves. Some had multiple limbs, others had none at all. Some floated in the air, while others needed special equipment to move in the station's artificial gravity. "Ah, the human has arrived," boomed a deep voice. Jiho turned to see a massive reptilian being approaching. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, the alien had dark green scales and yellow eyes with vertical pupils. His muscular arms were crossed over his chest and a smirk played on his lizard-like face. "Representative Kim, this is Commander Dak of the Talon Empire," Han explained. "Welcome, small one," Dak said, looking down at Jiho. "I hope you find your time with us educational." Before Jiho could respond, a soft chime echoed through the hall, and everyone began moving toward the center of the room where a raised platform stood. On the platform sat a cube-shaped object that seemed to shift colors as Jiho looked at it. "What's that?" Jiho asked Han as they joined the gathering crowd. "That's the strength trial artifact," Han whispered. "It's over 10,000 years old, created by one of the first spacefaring races. Every new representative is shown the trial during their introduction to the Council." The crowd grew quiet as an elderly alien stepped onto the platform. His skin was pale blue, and his forearms moved with elegant precision as he spoke. "Welcome, representatives of the great galactic species," the elder said, his voice surprisingly strong. "Today, we welcome our newest human delegate, Jiho Kim of Earth." All eyes turned to Jiho, who felt his face grow warm. "As is tradition," the elder continued, "we demonstrate the ancient strength trial to honor our shared history and the diverse abilities of all species." The elder gestured to the color-shifting cube. "This artifact adapts to each species that attempts to lift it. It senses your biological makeup and adjusts its mass accordingly, creating an equal challenge for all." Commander Dak stepped forward, his movements confident and powerful. "I will demonstrate," he announced. The reptilian warrior approached the cube and placed his scaled hands on either side of it. The cube shimmered, changing from blue to a deep red. With a grunt, Dak lifted the cube. His muscles bulged with effort, but he managed to raise it to chest height and hold it steady. The gathered aliens counted in unison. 1, 2, 3. By the count of 10, sweat was dripping from Dak's scales, but he held firm. When they reached 10, he carefully lowered the cube back to its pedestal. The room erupted in applause. "Commander Dak holds the current record," the elder explained. "No one has been able to hold the cube longer than he has in 300 years. Jiho watched with fascination as several other representatives attempted the trial. A tall insect-like being managed to lift it for 6 counts before dropping it. A squid-like creature with multiple tentacles couldn't budge it at all. "Would our new human representative like to observe the trial more closely?" the elder asked, gesturing to Jiho. Ji-ho felt Han stiffen beside him. It's just a formality, Han whispered urgently. No one expects you to try. Humans aren't known for physical strength in the galactic community. Something about Han's tone bothered Ji-ho. He remembered his grandfather's words when he was a boy, struggling to lift hay bales on their small farm. Strength isn't just in your muscles, Ji-ho. It's in your heart and your will. I would like to try the trial, Ji-ho said clearly. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Commander Dak let out a bark of laughter. The human wants to try, he announced, causing several aliens to chuckle. This should be amusing. Han grabbed Ji-ho's arm. What are you doing? He hissed. Humans have never succeeded at this. You'll embarrass Earth on your first day. Ji-ho gently pulled his arm free. I just want to try, he said. Even if I fail, at least I made the effort. The elder nodded respectfully. The trial is open to all representatives. Please approach. Ji-ho walked to the platform, aware of the many eyes watching him. Some with curiosity, others with amusement, and a few with what seemed like concern. As he stood before the cube, Ji-ho felt small. Earth was the newest member of the council, seen as technologically backward and physically inferior. Humans were often treated with polite condescension, like children who had wandered into an adult conversation. Place your hands on either side, the elder instructed. Ji-ho did as he was told. The cube felt warm to the touch, almost alive. It began to pulse with light, shifting from red to orange, then yellow, then a bright glowing white that Ji-ho had never seen it display before. The crowd fell silent, curious, the elder said, his four eyes widening. The artifact is calibrating differently for the human. Ji-ho took a deep breath, planted his feet firmly, and prepared to lift. He thought of Earth's higher gravity, of his grandfather's farm, of all the people who believed humans were too weak to matter in the grand scheme of the galaxy. I'm ready, he said. In the crowd, Commander Dak crossed his arms, a smug smile on his reptilian face. Han looked nervous, avoiding the eyes of the other representatives. Ji-ho tightened his grip on the cube, took another deep breath, and began to lift. The weight was immense, far heavier than anything he had ever tried to lift before. For a moment, he thought the cube wouldn't budge. Then slowly it began to rise. A collective gasp filled the room as Ji-ho lifted the glowing white cube off its pedestal. His arms trembled with effort, but he continued to raise it. Past his waist, up to his chest. 1. The elder began counting, his voice filled with astonishment. Ji-ho's muscles burned, but he kept lifting, above his chest, to his shoulders. 2. 3. The room was completely silent, except for the elder's count. Ji-ho could feel every eye on him, watching in disbelief, as the human did what was thought impossible, and still, he lifted. The news spread through the Galactic Council station like wildfire. A human, a member of the weakest, newest species in the Council, had lifted the strength trial cube higher than anyone had seen in centuries. Ji-ho had not only lifted it, but had held it above his head for a full 15 seconds before carefully placing it back on its pedestal. Commander Dak had stormed out of the meeting hall, his scales darkening with rage. Other representatives had whispered among themselves, some looking at Ji-ho with new respect, others with suspicion. Now, 3 days later, Ji-ho sat in the station's food hall, picking at a bowl of something that was supposed to resemble rice. His muscles still ached from the trial. May I join you? Asked a soft voice. Ji-ho looked up to see a human woman standing by his table. She had short black hair and wore the blue and white uniform of the science division. Please, Ji-ho said, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. I'm Sumin Park, she said as she sat down. I work in xenobiology, the study of alien life forms. Ji-ho Kim, he replied, though he suspected she already knew who he was. The whole station is talking about you, Sumin said with a smile. The human who embarrassed Commander Dak. Ji-ho shook his head. That wasn't my intention. I just wanted to try the trial. Well, intended or not, You've caused quite a stir. Sumin leaned forward. Do you know why you were able to lift the cube? Luck, Jiho offered. Sumin laughed. Science, not luck. I've been studying alien physiologies for years. Most species in the Council evolved on worlds with lower gravity than Earth. Jiho thought about this. So humans are naturally stronger, because we developed on a high-gravity planet? Partly, Sumin said. But it's more than that. Earth has highly variable conditions. Hot summers, cold winters, dry deserts, wet rainforests. Most Council species evolved on worlds with stable, uniform conditions. Humans had to become adaptable. She tapped her fingers on the table. And then there's our endurance. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We can keep going long after other species would give up. Jiho remembered how his arms had burned during the trial, how every fiber in his body had screamed at him to drop the cube. But he hadn't. The trial doesn't just measure raw strength, Sumin continued. It measures determination, adaptability, endurance. All things humans excel at. Their conversation was interrupted by a shadow falling across the table. Jiho looked up to see 3 aliens standing there. He recognized them as members of Commander Dak's species. So this is the human who thinks he's strong, said the largest of the 3, his voice a low hiss. Jiho remained calm. I don't think I'm anything special. I just took part in the trial like anyone else. The alien leaned down, bringing his reptilian face close to Jiho's. Commander Dak has held the record for 300 years. Do you really think a soft-skinned weakling like you could beat him fairly? Sumin spoke up. The trial cube calibrates itself. There's no way to cheat. The alien's yellow eyes shifted to her. Stay out of this, female. Your kind has no place in matters of strength. Jiho stood slowly, meeting the alien's gaze. I think you should leave now. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then the alien straightened and smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Commander Dak would like to invite you to observe some of our warriors training tomorrow. Perhaps you'd like to see what real strength looks like. Without waiting for an answer, the 3 aliens turned and left. Sumin let out a breath. That was Kez, Dak's second in command. You should be careful. The Telans don't like losing, especially to species they consider inferior. I'll be fine, Jiho said, sitting back down. But a knot of worry had formed in his stomach. The next day, Jiho found himself in a large training area. The room was filled with Talan warriors, all bigger and more muscular than Commander Dak. They lifted weights, sparred with each other, and performed exercises that made Jiho's muscles ache just watching. Dak stood in the center of it all, directing his warriors with sharp commands. When he spotted Jiho, he smiled and walked over. Representative Kim, welcome, Dak said, spreading his arms. I wanted you to see how the strongest species in the galaxy trains. Jiho nodded politely. Impressive. Indeed. Dak put a heavy arm around Jiho's shoulders, squeezing just a little too hard. You know, many believe your performance at the trial was a fluke, a one-time occurrence that couldn't be repeated. Is that what you believe? Jiho asked. Dak's smile widened. I believe in what I can see, and what I see is a small, soft human who doesn't belong among the stars. He guided Jiho to the side of the room where a massive Talan was lifting weights. Each weight looked heavier than Jiho himself. This is Mog, our strongest warrior, Dak said. He's been training for the trial for decades. Mog paused his exercise to look at Jiho. His expression was not friendly. Perhaps you'd like to join him? Dak suggested, gesturing to the weights. Jiho knew a trap when he saw one. Another time, perhaps. I have meetings to attend. Dak's smile never faltered. Of course, but you should know, Representative Kim, that I've formally requested a rematch of the trial, with proper witnesses and recording equipment. Jiho's heart sank, but he kept his face neutral. When? 3 days from now. The full council will be watching. Dak leaned closer. I hope you're ready to show everyone what humans are really made of. As Jiho left the training area, he heard the Talans laughing behind him. His hands were shaking slightly, and he closed them into fists to stop the trembling. He found Suman in her lab, surrounded by screens displaying alien anatomical diagrams. "They want a rematch," Jiho said without preamble. Suman turned to him, her expression serious. "I heard. The whole station knows by now. Dak showed me his warriors today. They're incredibly strong." Suman nodded. "The Tylons are physically impressive, but remember what I told you about human advantages." She pressed a button, and one of her screens changed to show a diagram of a human next to a Talon. "Look here," she said, pointing. "Talon muscles are designed for explosive power, quick, strong movements. Human muscles are designed for endurance. We can keep going when they start to tire." Jiho studied the diagram. "But the trial only lasts seconds." "True," Suman admitted. "But there's something else you should know." She lowered her voice, though they were alone in the lab. "I've been researching the history of the trial. For the past few centuries, only certain species have been able to perform well in it. Species that are allies of the Talons." Jiho frowned. "What are you suggesting?" "I think Commander Dak and his people have found a way to influence the cube," Suman said. "Not cheat exactly, but adjust things in their favor." "Can you prove it?" Suman shook her head. "Not yet, but I'm working on it." Jiho stared out the lab window at the stars beyond. He thought of Earth, still new to the galactic community, still trying to prove its worth. "I'll do the rematch," he said firmly. "Whether they've been cheating or not," Suman smiled. "I knew you would, and I'll help you prepare." That night, as Jiho lay in his quarters trying to sleep, he remembered his grandfather again. The old man had always said that true strength came from inside, from knowing who you were and what you stood for. "I'm not just lifting for myself," Jiho whispered into the darkness. "I'm lifting for Earth." The grand hall of the Galactic Council was packed. Representatives from all 57 member species had gathered to witness the rematch of the strength trial. The air buzzed with excited whispers and speculation. Jiho stood in a small preparation room, trying to calm his racing heart. The past 3 days had been filled with intense training sessions with Suman. They had focused on his breathing, his stance, and his mental focus, all things she said would help him during the trial. "Are you ready?" Suman asked, handing him a bottle of water. Jiho took a long drink before answering. "As ready as I'll ever be." The door opened and Han entered. The older human looked worried. "The hall is full," Han said. "I've never seen so many representatives gathered for something like this." "Is that bad?" Jiho asked. Han shrugged. "It means a lot of important eyes will be watching. If you succeed, it's good for Earth. If you fail..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Jiho knew what was at stake. In the brief time since his first attempt at the trial, Earth's standing in the Council had improved. Species that had previously ignored humans were now seeking meetings and trade agreements. All of that could disappear if today went poorly. "There's something else you should know," Han said, lowering his voice. "Taiwan is here." Suman gasped softly, the elder of 7 stars. He never attends minor events. "Who is Taiwan?" Jiho asked. "One of the oldest and most respected members of the Council," Han explained. "He's from the Mir species. They were among the first to achieve space travel, thousands of years ago. If he's here, this event is more important than we realized." A soft chime sounded, signaling it was time. "Remember what we practiced," Suman said, squeezing Jiho's arm. "Steady breathing, focus on your core, and most importantly, believe in yourself." Jiho nodded and stepped out into the grand hall. The room fell silent as he walked toward the center. The trial cube sat on its pedestal, shimmering with soft colors. Around it, in rising tiers, sat the representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species. At the highest tier sat a small, ancient-looking alien with silvery skin and large, wise eyes. Taiwan, Jiho guessed. Commander Dak entered from the opposite side of the hall. He wore formal armor that made his already impressive frame look even larger. A ripple of applause followed him as he strode confidently to the center, A tall, blue-skinned alien stepped forward to address the gathering. Jiho recognized him as the Council's chief adjudicator. Representatives of the Galactic community, the adjudicator announced, his voice carrying easily through the hall. We gather today to witness a formal trial of strength between Commander Dak of the Talon Empire and Representative Jiho Kim of Earth. He gestured to the cube. The ancient artifact has been examined and verified by representatives from 7 neutral species. It will, as always, adjust its mass according to the physiology of the one who attempts to lift it. The adjudicator turned to Dak. Commander Dak, as the current record holder, you may attempt the trial first. Dak stepped forward, his yellow eyes briefly flicking toward Jiho with a look of contempt. He positioned himself before the cube and placed his scaled hands on either side. The cube glowed red, just as it had during Dak's previous demonstration. With a grunt, Dak lifted the cube. His muscles bulged beneath his armor as he raised it to chest height. The hall was silent as the adjudicator began counting. 1, 2, 3. By the count of 8, sweat poured down Dak's scales. His arms trembled slightly, but he held firm. 9, 10, the adjudicator concluded. The crowd erupted in applause as Dak set the cube down. He turned to the audience and raised his arms in triumph, soaking in their admiration. Commander Dak has successfully completed the trial, the adjudicator announced. He has maintained his record of 10 counts. Now all eyes turn to Jiho. Representative Kim, you may now attempt the trial. Jiho stepped forward, very aware of the thousands of alien eyes watching his every move. He could feel Commander Dak's burning gaze on his back. Taking a deep breath just as Sumin had taught him, Jiho placed his hands on the cube. Immediately, something felt different. The cube was cold to the touch, not warm as it had been during his first attempt. It shifted colors rapidly, red, purple, green, before settling on a dull gray. Jiho frowned. This wasn't right. He glanced up at the high tier where Tae-Wan sat. The ancient alien was leaning forward, his large eyes narrowed in concentration. Focusing again on the cube, Jiho tensed his muscles and began to lift. The weight was enormous, much heavier than before. His arms shook with effort as he tried to raise the cube off its pedestal. It barely moved. A murmur spread through the crowd. Jiho could hear some chuckling, particularly from the section where the Talons sat. Concentrate, he told himself. Remember what Sumin said. He adjusted. His stance slightly, took another deep breath, and tried again. This time the cube rose a few inches before the weight became too much and he had to set it back down. The murmuring grew louder. Jiho could feel sweat beading on his forehead. Something was wrong. The cube didn't feel the same as it had during his first attempt. He looked up again, this time at Sumin, who stood at the edge of the hall. She was frowning, her eyes darting between Jiho and Commander Dak, who now wore a smug smile. Then, a soft voice spoke in Jiho's mind. The cube responds to more than just physical strength, young human. Jiho blinked in surprise. He looked up at Tae-Wan, who was staring directly at him. The ancient alien nodded slightly. It measures the strength of will as much as the strength of body, the voice continued. The Talons have forgotten this, focusing only on physical power. But you humans understand endurance, persistence, determination. Jiho didn't know if he was imagining the voice or if Tae-Wan's species could somehow communicate telepathically. Either way, the words resonated with him. He placed his hands on the cube one more time. Instead of focusing on his muscles, he thought about Earth, about his grandfather's farm, about all the challenges humans had overcome throughout their history, about the determination that had taken his species from stone tools to the stars in a mere blink of cosmic time. The cube began to change. The dull gray color brightened, shifting to blue, then to a brilliant white that seemed to pulse with inner light. A gasp ran through the hall. Even the adjudicator took a step back in surprise. With renewed confidence, Jiho lifted. This time, the cube rose smoothly. It was still heavy, incredibly so, but now it felt right. It felt fair. Jiho lifted the cube past his waist, to his chest, to his shoulders. And then with one final surge of effort, he raised it above his head, arms fully extended. The adjudicator, momentarily stunned, remembered to count. 1, 2, 3. The hall was completely silent. Commander Dak's smug smile had vanished, replaced by a look of shock and growing anger. 7, 8, 9, 10. But Jiho didn't stop. He continued to hold the glowing cube aloft as the count continued. 11, 12. His arms burned. His shoulders screamed in protest. But in his mind, he heard his grandfather's voice. Strength isn't just in your muscles, Jiho. It's in your heart and your will. 15, 16. The cube's light grew brighter, casting white rays across the hall, illuminating the astonished faces of the galactic representatives. 20! At last, Jiho gently lowered the cube back to its pedestal. The moment it touched down, the hall erupted. The grand hall was in chaos. Representatives from dozens of species were on their feet, some cheering, others arguing loudly. Jiho stood by the trial cube, his arms still tingling from the effort of holding it for 20 counts, twice as long as Commander Dak's record. Impossible! Commander Dak roared, pushing through the crowd toward Jiho. The human cheated. Several security officers, large four-armed beings with purple skin, moved to intercept Dak before he could reach Jiho. The adjudicator raised his hands, calling for order. Silence. The council will have order. Gradually, the noise died down. Representatives returned to their seats, though the buzz of excited whispers continued. The trial has been completed according to all proper rules, the adjudicator announced. Representative Jiho Kim of Earth has established a new record of 20 counts. Dak pushed past the security officers. I demand an investigation. The cube must have malfunctioned. The cube has been tested and verified, the adjudicator replied calmly. There is no evidence of malfunction. Then he must have used some human trick, Dak insisted, pointing at Jiho. Some technology hidden in his clothing. Sumin stepped forward. Representative Kim was scanned before entering the hall, as was Commander Dak. No technology was detected on either of them. Dak's scales darkened with rage. He turned to the assembled representatives. Are we to believe that a human, a member of the weakest, newest species in the galaxy, has more than doubled the record that has stood for 3 centuries? It is absurd. From the highest tier, a soft voice spoke. The hall immediately fell silent as Elder Taewan rose from his seat. I find it interesting, Taewan said, his voice gentle yet clearly audible throughout the hall, that Commander Dak speaks of absurdity when facing evidence that challenges his beliefs. The ancient alien descended from his seat, moving with surprising grace for one so old. He approached the center of the hall where Jiho, Dak, and the adjudicator stood. I have observed more than 40 generations of galactic politics, Taewan continued. I have seen species rise and fall, and one thing I have learned is that assumptions about the capabilities of others are often wrong. He turned to Jiho. May I? He asked, gesturing to the cube. Jiho nodded, stepping aside. Taewan placed his small, silver-skinned hands on the cube. It began to glow with a soft blue light. With seemingly no effort, the ancient alien lifted the cube and held it, at chest height. The strength trial was never about raw physical power, Taewan explained as he held the cube steady. It was created by my ancestors as a test of something far more important. He set the cube down gently. The cube measures not just the strength of body, but the strength of will, of determination, of spirit. These are qualities that cannot be measured by the size of one's muscles. Taewan turned to face the assembled representatives. The human succeeded because he possesses these qualities in abundance. His species evolved on a harsh world with high gravity and extreme environmental variations. They developed not just physical adaptations, but mental ones, persistence, endurance, and an unbreakable will to survive. Commander Dak snorted in derision. Pretty words, Elder, but they do not change the fact that the trial has always been a test of physical strength. Has it? Taewan asked. Or is that simply what the Talons have chosen to believe because it favors your particular abilities? He turned to Sumin. I believe the human scientist has something to share with the council. All eyes turned to Suman, who looked startled at being called upon. She stepped forward holding a small data device. I've been researching the history of the strength trial, she began nervously. Specifically, the performance patterns of different species over time. She activated the device and a holographic chart appeared in the air. For the first 2,000 years of the trial's existence, many different species held the record at different times. But for the past 5 centuries, only species allied with the Talon Empire have performed well. The chart showed a clear pattern. Sumin continued, "This statistical anomaly is highly improbable unless some external factor was influencing the results." "What are you suggesting?" the adjudicator asked. "I believe the Talons found a way to adjust the trial's calibration," Sumin said. "Not enough to be obvious, but enough to give their physiology an advantage." Commander Dak lunged forward. "How dare you accuse us of—" "She accuses you of nothing that the evidence does not support," Taewon interrupted. "My people created the cube. Did you think we would not notice subtle attempts to alter its function?" The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. Dak looked around, seeing the changing expressions of the representatives. Many who had been his allies now looked at him with suspicion. "This is why the cube responded so differently to Representative Kim during his second attempt," Taewon explained. "Someone attempted to manipulate its calibration yet again, this time to make it nearly impossible for a human to lift." He turned to Jiho. "But you overcame this handicap through sheer force of will. The cube recognized your determination and responded to it, returning to its true function." Jiho remembered how the cube had felt cold at first, then changed as he focused his thoughts on Earth and his grandfather's teachings. "The truth is," Taewon said, addressing the entire council, "humans possess a quality that is rare in the galaxy, a combination of physical capability and mental fortitude that allows them to exceed their apparent limitations. This is why Representative Kim was able to shatter the record, even when the odds were stacked against him." Commander Dak looked around the hall, seeing he was losing the support of the council. With a final glare at Jiho, he stormed out, his allies trailing behind him. The adjudicator stepped forward. "In light of these revelations, the council will launch a full investigation into past strength trials. For now, Representative Jiho Kim's record stands, and Earth's achievement is recognized by the Galactic Council." As the formal session ended, representatives crowded around Jiho, eager to speak with the human who had done the impossible. Species that had previously ignored Earth's representatives now sought alliances and trade agreements. Later, in a quiet corner of the station, Jiho sat with Sumin and Han, still trying to process everything that had happened. "Did you know?" Jiho asked Sumin. "About the cube measuring will as well as strength?" Sumin shook her head. "I suspected there was more to it than pure physical power, but I had no idea about its true purpose." "Elder Taewon seemed to know you would succeed," Han remarked, almost as if he had been waiting for a human to attempt the trial. Jiho thought about the voice he had heard in his mind during the trial. "I think there's a lot more to this than we understand." A station attendant approached their table. "Representative Kim, Elder Taewon requests your presence." Jiho looked at his friends in surprise. "Go," Sumin urged. "This could be important for Earth." Jiho followed the attendant through the station to a part he had never visited before. They stopped at a door that opened silently as they approached. Inside, Taewon sat alone in a simple room filled with strange plants and soft light. "Come in, young human," the ancient alien said. "We have much to discuss about your species' role in the galaxy." Jiho entered, feeling that he stood on the threshold of something much greater than a mere strength competition. The trial was just the beginning, Taewon said. "There is a reason why we have been waiting for a species like yours." Jiho sat across from Elder Taewon in the peaceful room filled with strange plants. The air smelled sweet, like flowers after rain. "You said you have been waiting for a species like humans," Jiho said. "What did you mean by that?" Taewon's large eyes studied Jiho carefully. "The galaxy is very old, young human, and in its long history there have been many dangers." The elder alien rose and walked to a wall that suddenly became transparent. revealing the vast starfield beyond. My people were among the first to travel between stars over 15,000 years ago. We discovered many wonder and some terrors. Jiho watched as Taewon waved his small silver hand. A holographic map of the galaxy appeared, floating in the air between them. At the edge of the galactic rim, Taewon continued, pointing to a dark area on the map. We encountered a species unlike any other. They did not communicate. They did not trade. They simply consumed. The map zoomed in on the dark area, showing what looked like black holes where stars should have been. We called them the Void Eaters, Taewon said quietly. They absorb energy, from stars, from planets, from living beings. They nearly destroyed my people before we found a way to contain them. Jiho leaned forward. Contain them? How? We created a barrier at the edge of their territory, Taewon explained. A wall of energy that they could not pass through. But maintaining this barrier requires something special. Beings with both physical strength and exceptional willpower. Suddenly, Jiho understood. The trial cube. It's not just a test, is it? It's a way to find species capable of helping maintain this barrier. Taewon smiled. You are quick to understand, Jiho Kim. Yes, the strength trial was designed to identify species with the right combination of attributes. For thousands of years, my people and others like us have guarded the rim, keeping the Void Eaters contained. But, why tell me this now? Jiho asked. Taewon's expression grew somber. Because we are growing fewer. The species that once maintained the barrier are aging, dying out. Some have chosen to leave the stars entirely. And the Void Eaters, they are becoming active again after millennia of dormancy. He touched the map, and it showed energy readings from the dark region. The pattern pulsed like a heartbeat. We need new guardians, Taewon said simply. We have been searching the galaxy for species with the right qualities. The Talon seemed promising once, but they proved to be too focused on physical power alone. Mental strength, determination, persistence, adaptability, these are equally important. Jiho thought about Earth, still so new to the galactic community. And you think humans have these qualities? I know they do, Taewon replied. Your performance in the trial proved it, but it was more than that. We have been observing Earth for centuries. Your people overcame disease, natural disasters, wars, and countless other challenges to rise from simple tool users to star travelers in a remarkably short time. Jiho was silent for a moment, taking in this information. So what happens now? Now, Taewon said, Earth must be formally invited to join the Rim Guardians. It is a great honor and a great responsibility. 3 days later, Jiho stood in the main chamber of the Galactic Council. The hall was even more crowded than during the rematch of the strength trial. Representatives from all 57 member species were present, along with their aides and diplomats. In the center of the hall stood the trial cube, but it no longer sat on its pedestal. Instead, it floated in the air, pulsing with a soft white light. Elder Taewon addressed the assembly. For too long, the true purpose of the Guardians has been kept secret from most of the council. Today, that changes. A stunned silence fell over the hall as Taewon revealed the existence of the Void Eaters and the barrier that had protected the galaxy for thousands of years. The trial cube is more than a test of strength, Taewon explained. It is a key, a way to identify those who can join in our most sacred duty. He turned to Jiho. Representative Jiho Kim has demonstrated that humans possess the qualities needed to become guardians. Therefore, I formally invite Earth to join the Guardian Compact. Commander Dak, who had been notably quiet during the proceedings, finally spoke up. This is outrageous. Humans have been part of the galactic community for barely 15 years. They know nothing of cosmic responsibilities. Perhaps that is why they are perfect for this role, Taewon replied calmly. They come with fresh eyes and unbiased hearts. The adjudicator called for a vote. One by one, the representatives cast their votes. Many who had previously dismissed humans now voted in favor of Earth joining the Guardians. Even some of Dak's traditional allies broke ranks to support the motion. When the voting ended, the result was clear. Earth would join the Guardian Compact. Jiho stepped forward, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. On behalf of Earth, I accept this honor. But I have one condition. A murmur ran through the crowd. It was unusual for a new species to set conditions. The knowledge of the Void Eaters and the barrier should not be restricted to a few, Jiho said. All species in the Council should know what threatens our galaxy and what protects it. Secrecy breeds suspicion and division. Openness fosters cooperation and unity. Taewon studied Jiho for a long moment, then nodded. Your words have wisdom. Let it be so. 1 month later, Jiho stood on the observation deck of the Earth ship, Horizon, looking out at the edge of the galaxy. Behind him, 20 other humans, scientists, soldiers, and diplomats prepared for their first duty as guardians. Sumin joined him at the window. Nervous? She asked. Jiho smiled. A little. We're the first humans to see the barrier, the first to take on this responsibility. Not just humans, Sumin pointed out. Look. Jiho turned to see ships from a dozen different species approaching. The same destination. The Talons were there, including, surprisingly, Commander Dak's vessel. Representatives from the oldest council species flew alongside newcomers like Earth. Taewon was right, Sumin said. Your idea to share the knowledge brought more species to help, not fewer. Jiho watched as the ships formed a line along the galactic rim. Ahead, he could see a faint shimmer in space, the barrier that had protected the galaxy for thousands of years. We're stronger together, Jiho said. His communicator beeped. It was a message from Elder Taewon. Prepare for barrier reinforcement. Follow the lead of the Mir ship. Jiho took a deep breath and turned to his crew. This is it, humanity's first action as guardians of the Rim. As the Earth ship moved into position, Jiho thought about how a simple test of strength had changed everything. One human's determination had not only shattered a record, but had opened a new chapter in Earth's relationship with the galaxy. Ahead, the barrier began to pulse with energy. Jiho remembered his grandfather's words one last time. Strength isn't just in your muscles, Jiho. It's in your heart and your will. Now, the strength of humanity would help protect the entire galaxy. The trial cube, brought aboard the Horizon for the ceremony, began to glow brightly. As if responding to Jiho's thoughts, it rose into the air, pulsing with the same rhythm as the distant barrier. Barrier reinforcement beginning, came Taewon's voice. Channel your strength, all of you, mind and body together. Jiho closed, his eyes focused just as he had during the trial. Around him, humans and aliens alike did the same. Together, they faced the darkness beyond the rim, united in purpose, and resolved to protect the light of countless stars and worlds. The age of the new Guardians had begun.